Okay, hey folks, Mark Locklear here, and this is our first week screencast, which is going to be, let's see what I have for week one. Intro to Server Administration is what I'm calling this week. So goals for this week, and again, this is the first sort of first week of class, so you're sort of getting the lay of the land. Hopefully, you've watched the introduction, the getting started intro video for the course that I've got. So if you haven't watched that, let me turn my blur off in the back just so you can see. If you haven't watched that yet, go ahead and take a look. We're going to be spending a lot of time in Azure this semester, Microsoft Azure. Hopefully this goes well. This is the first time we've used this as a like a platform like this. So what I'm going to do for this screencast is sort of walk you through creating your Azure account, which is going to be tied to your AB Tech username and password. The college, we're a Microsoft 360 sort of organization, so everything's sort of based on that. So when you authenticate to Azure, you're going to be using the same AB Tech username and password you use to log into Moodle. You can also use that to log into Azure too. This is not a cloud computing class, and this is not an Azure class. The idea here is, number one, you're going to get some exposure to cloud computing via Azure, which is a good thing because, again, if you go on to do great things in software development, database administration, anything like that, you very well may be spending a lot of time inside cloud cloud technology. Azure is obviously one of the big ones right now. The other two big ones are AWS, Amazon Web Services, and then also Google, GPC, Google. Gosh, I can't even think of the name of their cloud. Anyway, Google has their home cloud service too, where you can spin up servers. But so the focus is going to be, so while we're going to be spending some time in Azure, that you shouldn't be spending a ton of time on that this first week. You may, because often there's just a bunch of little doodads and doohickeys that you have to click and turn on. But once the server is started, once you've created your server, once you've installed the things you need to install, it shouldn't be a big deal. You shouldn't have to sort of deal with that part of it. But I'm going to talk about some nuances of that and sort of walk you through things there. So to get started, I'm just going to share this screen, and so you can see so I'm inside Moodle here now. I'm inside the Code 1 assignment. So before we actually jump into the Azure stuff, I do have a LinkedIn learning. There's a couple of LinkedIn learning exercises we'll be using throughout the semester, but specifically this one this week on manage virtual machines in Azure. Watch that, but you may not want to follow along there because I think he creates a Windows machine. You can do it if you like. So that's up to you, but you may just want to follow along. He's gonna. The idea here is just to give you a little broader introduction to Azure than what I'm going to do. We're going to focus. I'm going to walk you through specifically creating an Ubuntu search server that includes or again, in the subsequent weeks, we'll be installing MySQL and doing these other things too. Right now, the goal is just to actually spin the server up, make sure you can log into it, do all those things. So there's that piece. The other thing is, again, feel free to experiment with these things. And if you want to spin up a Windows machine and experiment, you can do that. With the free account, so with this account that we're creating, it's a free account, so it means you don't have to, and the other advantage is, like, you don't have to put a credit card in, right? There's other quote unquote free services, which they are free, but they still verify your identity, force you to put a password in. The idea I wanted to do here is, or the reason I like Azure here with this free student account is that you get $100 free credit, and you don't have to put any credit card information in or anything like that. I know students don't. Many of you, I'm sure, don't have a credit card, so that's kind of a deal. That's kind of a deal breaker. However, the point I want to get across too is that you've only got $100 worth of credit, so be careful about that. I'm going to show you how to watch it. There's a cost management feature, so you can see So the server that we're going to create is around $7 a month. So for this 8-week class, two months, you shouldn't spend any more than maybe $14, $15 of that $100 credit that you've got. So just be real careful about if you're experimenting by spinning up other servers, which is completely fine. I mean, I kind of want you to do that. Just be careful about watching how much these servers cost, and then whether they're online or not. I'll talk to you about, my recommendation is going to be for you, like for instance, for this class, for the Ubuntu server, if you're not using it, just stop the server. You can actually stop it and take it offline. Like the server it's still there, and all the changes you've made, anything you've done to it is still there, but you can just stop it when you're not using it. And then when you're working on class stuff, you can spin it up. It'll take 30 seconds or a minute. Should take no more than 30 seconds or a minute for it to get turned on and spun up. And then that's going to help control costs too. The reason I mentioned that is that if you stop it like that, you pay a certain amount to spin the server up, but then if it's powered down, I'm not sure if it's 100% free, but it's either free, you're not paying anything at all, or you're paying a very, very small number just for it to remain associated with your account. So anyway, I'll get into all that. First thing is this link here for this /free. In fact, I'm going to open an incognito window because the other thing that's difficult here is what you see in the screencast is not 100% going to look like what you see, because I've already created an account and I've been doing a whole bunch of work in it, experimenting, in preparation for this class. So what you're going to see on my end is not 100% what you see on your end. So that's just going to be a little bit of a challenge we're going to have to deal with. So I'm going to open an incognito window up here so you sort of see what that looks like. So you should get something like you should see this exact screen here. You see this start with Azure, and then you're going to click the start free button. I think I can click through here. And this is where it's going to go off the rails some, or you'll see something different. You'll see something like this. You're going to enter your ABTech email here, and then next, and then enter your ABTech password. Again, the same email and password that you use to log into Moodle, you should be able to use here. Okay. So I'm just going to stop there as far as that goes. Once you do that, you should create your account, and you may have to click through a few things. If you have issues, let me know, but you should land on something that looks like this. So this is sort of the Azure home screen, administrative screen. Again, yours is going to look different. I've got a whole bunch of other stuff here that I've created based on previous work that I've been doing. So yours is going to look a little different. Let me see if I can spread this image out a little bit. There we go. Yours is going to look a little different. Okay. So what I'm going to walk you through now is generally how to create the virtual machine. So this is going to be an Ubuntu server. For those of you who were in my DBA120 class this past spring or actually either mine or Jack's DBA120. If you took DBA120 at AB Tech this past spring of 2024, and for future classes, you already should have some Ubuntu experience and working inside MySQL. And that's sort of the goal, is rather than us creating a server for you that you use, you're going to create your own server. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump into this. So click on the virtual machines. So you may or may not see this here. You may need to come up here and type virtual. If you start typing virtual machines up here, type virtual, you should get it here. So that's going to bring you to this page. You probably shouldn't have anything, or you probably won't have anything here yet. We're going to go create, and we're going to choose an Azure virtual machine. Okay, this is going to spin through. Your subscription should probably say Azure for Students here. You can create a new resource group. I'm going to grab mine. I just used my last name. There may be, if you want to use your last name, you can really use whatever you want there. You're going to create a virtual machine name. Again, you can really call this whatever you want. DBA120 probably makes sense. So I'm going to do DBA210. DBA210 probably makes sense for this class. So we can leave security type as trusted machines. We can use Ubuntu server. We're going to use version 20.04 LTS. I think that's long-term server. Here is the important part here, and yours is going to look a little different. We want to choose this when it comes to size. Choose this standard underscore B1S, and we're going to choose 1 gig of memory. And it should say this $7.59 per month. So that's important. Like a standard production servers, probably like 4 gigs, and those servers are like $50 and $60 per month. You do not want to use those. You want to make sure you're using this $7 server per month. I mean, the idea here is I don't want you using up all your $100 credit that you've got. And again, for future classes, some of you may have already used this for DBA120. So you'll already, maybe we've already gone through this, but again, there is a cheaper, the cheapest they've got is actually this 0.5, this half a gig of memory, which is actually like $4 bucks, a little less than $4 a month. But I think that's actually too small to install MySQL. There's not actually quite enough memory on the server to be able to install and run SQL. Your authentication type is going to be an SSH public key. I'll walk you through what that is. Yeah, you should be able to take the defaults on all the rest of this. The other thing this is important is going to be this inbound port. You're going to be SSHing into the server. Again, for those who have took DBA120 this past spring, you'll already know what that means. So we're going to go ahead and hit review and create. It's going to take it to this last screen. Sometimes it balks here and you say there's issues you need to look at. Sometimes it's just a matter of like the networking one. It seems to be one that I've seen a couple of times. Sometimes it's just a matter of going back, clicking back on the network tab, and then coming back to review and create. So if there's issues, if you have issues with this, just let me know. So that's it. Everything you should, if it says validation passed up here, you should be good. So we're going to hit create. You're going to be prompted with this generate new key pair. That's what you want to do, and we're going to download a private key and create resource. Okay, so I'm going to click that. And again, inside your web browser, you notice up here, I've got this DBA210 underscore key.pim. This is going to be the SSH key you're going to use to authenticate, log in, SSH to your server. Mine is set to default to my desktop. You just need to be aware of, depending on what your browser configuration is like, downloaded files may go there, maybe a downloads folder that it goes to. So you just need to know, make sure you know where that location is, because you're not going to be able to log into your server unless you know the file location of where this .tem file is. Okay. Says your deployment is complete. That's a good sign. I'm going to go ahead and click go to resource. Now mine has a, because I've been in here doing other things, this is a little different for me. I do not have a public IP address assigned. So I'm actually going to pause the recording, and I will be back in a jiffy. Okay, and we're back. So now you notice I have a public IP address here. This is the public IP address you can actually use to SSH into your server, and then later in the class we are going to be later in the class we'll be doing web things. We're going to install Apache. We'll install PHP, MySQL, some other things. That's the public facing IP address you can use. You can associate a domain name with this IP address if you want, outside the scope of this class, so I'm not going to get into that. But if you own a domain name through your domain name, whatever domain name provider you would like, I like Namecheap, just so you know, that's what I use. You know, and it might be worth, I'll just throw that out there. It's worth doing sometimes. It's just nice to have your own domain name. Just buy the cheapest one you can find, which is usually $9-10 a year. And just it makes stuff like this easier. You can associate a domain name with a specific IP address, or you can create a subdomain. It's nice to, you know, locklear.me is the domain name that I maintain. I've maintained over the years, and like if I have a class like this and I just need a quick way to get to an IP address, I'll create, you know, I might create dba120.locklear.me. But once you have a domain name, you can create subdomains and then associate them with IP addresses, which makes things kind of easy. Okay. All right, we're ready to authenticate. We've got our server. Hopefully it's up. Yours looks similar to this. Again, just a sanity check. This should automatically assign you a public IP address. So I'll just stop there. So at this point, you should be ready to go. So I'm going to click connect again. Now we've got a couple of different options. We're going to use native SSH. Now, gives you this little screen, and basically all we're going to do is insert the path to our, we're going to insert the path to our .pim key. So if you remember the key that we downloaded earlier, so mine, I think, we'll make sure we get it right, is DBA120 dot, and then it always adds an underscore key to it. So based on whatever the server name, it adds underscore key to the file name. So again, in my case, this .pim file was saved on the desktop, so I put it there. And then notice once you put the path to your .pim key in here, notice that it updates this field, and that's what you're going to actually copy. So notice I click the copy button. I'm going to open up a terminal window or command line window, and all I need to do is paste that in. And notice what we've got here. Just so now you can do this. This is just an easy way for it to create the command you need to SSH into your server. But just to break this down, the SSH command is that says that, hey, we want to SSH into a server. This .i, be honest, I'm not sure what .i is. I think it says that, hey, the next thing I'm going to enter is the path to the key file. So -i, and then I put the path to the key file in here. Notice it's .pim, and then Azure user @ and then whatever the IP address. Everybody, by default, when Azure creates a server like this for you, this Azure user is the default username. So Azure user, and then the @ sign, and then whatever. This is the public IP address for your server. So again, this is going to look different for you based on the key that you're using, and then based on the IP address that you've got. I'm going to hit enter. Now, by default, you're going to get something, you may get something like this. I'm only seeing this because I've previously used this IP address before, so I'm going to pause recording and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I've previously used that IP address before, so I got a known host error. So I had to edit my known host and remove that IP address. Again, outside the scope of this class. Just know if you reuse an IP address, you could run into that issue. It's a fairly easy fix, but again, outside of the scope of this class for now, and not worth discussing. If you do run into that issue, we can deal with it. All right, so I've cleaned up my known host file, and now I'm going to try this command again. You should see something like this about this key is known by other names. Maybe if you do, you'll go type yes, and then it permanently added it. Now you may get, in this case, I'm getting there's a permissions issue with connecting to this. Let me see how. Okay, so I think this is just probably a Linux, or either if you're on either Mac or Linux, you may run into this issue. So if you do, you need to run this chmod command. This changes the permissions of the file. It needs to be readable. This key file needs to be readable. So I'm going to execute that. I'm going to try it again. Again, you may not run into that. If you don't worry about it. If you do, let me know and we can work through it. Okay. All righty, run into an issue. I need to fix this. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back now. I think we got this resolved again. Special issue. I mean, the other thing this is a good point of is that part of me wants to say that these, cloud computing can be squirrely like this. That's not really the case. I mean, it can be, but again, there's a lot of doodads and widgets and different things that can go on here. So I think part of the lesson for this class too is going to be that with working with cloud services like this, and again, I've spent most of my time, more time in AWS than I have in Azure, although having teaching this class, I'm getting more and more of a feel for it. That it's just you don't always get the exact same experience each time. So this is going to be a good exercise in patience when working with systems like this. Again, for the most part, it's one of these deals where generally you just have to spend a lot of time up front getting the server built right. And after that, it's, you really don't have to go back and touch anything. So, and just keep that in mind too if you're in there. I encourage students to play and experiment and try different things, but just know that when you do that, just be prepared for, be prepared to be flexible, because you may have to troubleshoot some things to try and figure out what might have gone wrong if you go in and break something. Okay, so we are logged into our server here. This is a standard, typical garden variety Ubuntu server. This is the same thing you would get, once you're SSH'd into it here, whether you actually install Ubuntu locally on your desktop or laptop computer. If you spin it up in AWS or DigitalOcean or Azure or or Google or any of the other, dozens of cloud service providers out there, Ubuntu is Ubuntu no matter where it's at once it's sort of spun up in this state. So so I don't want to go back and look, see if there's anything here. Yeah, for week one, this is really the goal, is just to have the server here. Obviously, you should be able to log out and log back in. We're going to go ahead. The first thing you should probably do is update the server. The way these cloud services work is you've got an image of a particular server out there, but it was created at a certain point in time with a certain set of updates on it. Now I can't tell you how often they update these, and then in the background it could be weekly, it could be monthly, I'm not sure. Either way, it's good practice to go ahead and update the server when you first spin it up like this. So the first thing we're going to enter is sudo apt update. All right, let me make this a little larger just in case you can't see it as well. Sudo command, I think we'll talk about that in the Linux Essentials LinkedIn Learning class you're going to be doing. The first 3 weeks of the class, you're going to be doing a little Linux administration, just so you've got some basic skills there. Sudo is basically a super user, even though you're logged in as a root user here. This Azure user is a root user. Anytime you enter a command that needs root privileges, you still have to enter this sudo command. So you do sudo update, which actually updates the repository in the background. You're not actually updating the server the way, and again, this is outside the scope of this class, so I'm not going to get too far in the weeds, but there's a set of repositories where the systems files live. And so this first command, the update command, is just updating the repository files. It's not actually updating the server itself. Sudo apt upgrade is what actually updates the local server here. And in this case, I'm kind of surprised to see that, but there's actually no update and upgrade. Yeah, there's actually no new files to be installed, so we're actually good there. That's about all I wanted to cover in this screencast, is to give you that. I talked about a couple other things about stopping the server, so let me go back. So generally, to get back to the server inside the interface, you just need to, again, starting from the home screen. At this point, you've probably got this virtual machines icon here, so you can always go back to that, and then you should see your server listed here. And then if you click on the server name, and then it actually brings up all of these options. Let me collapse that. These are all the various things, again, outside of the scope of this class to get into these, so I'm not going to do a whole lot there. I mentioned stopping and starting the server. Again, my recommendation would be that anytime you're not in there working, you can just click the stop button here, and that will actually stop the server. At that point, it's stopped. It's no longer available to be SSH'd into. I mean, there's a security aspect to it too. If the server is stopped and offline, then you don't have to worry about anybody hacking into it or anything like that. That being said, I'm not worried about that. You know, hackers have a lot more important things to do than worry about what community college students are doing. So not a huge deal. That being said, I probably wouldn't go out and like publicly post my IP address or something like that. But I'm not too worried about it from a security standpoint. In worst case scenario, if something did happen, you just bring the server down and spin a new one up. So, but anyway, the stopping issue I talked about is one of, again, from a cost standpoint, it's just going to save you some money there, you know, and when I say it's going to save you money, you know, we're only talking about a few bucks a month. But again, you know, this is something you can continue to play with and experiment with your time, not only here at AB Tech, but after you leave here and go on to do great things other places, or when you're on your job search. It's just there's no reason to pay for a server when you don't necessarily need it. So my recommendation would be, again, to stop the server when you're not actually using it. Again, a bunch of all these are you know, the public IP address, private internal IP address for networking, all those things are here. Again, outside the scope of this class, not really going to go into that, but feel free to explore that if you like. I talked about cost. To get to cost, if you go to cost management, and then we go to Azure subscriptions, I think. Yeah. So this is the quickest way I found to get here. If somebody knows of a better screen or a better way to get to it, yeah, go to cost management and then this Azure subscriptions. And then over here, you can see monthly or month to date charges, last month's charge. You should be able to see the total cost here. You know, I've been like, for instance, again, I've got the same $100 credit that you all are using. And I've been playing with this for about 2 months now. I've spun up multiple servers, probably a dozen or more at this point. I've only been charged $11 up to this point. And again, when I say charged $11, that's credit that they've taken away against the $100 that the $100 credit that I've got. So it's not like I've been charged that. My credit is down from it's down by $11.86 from the original $100 I had. And I don't know if we click here. Yeah, I think you can see. Yeah, you can see more things here. Doesn't show. I'm sure there's somewhere that would show like total remaining credit that you got. But anyway, just sort of watch that again. As long as you just be sure to choose the cheap server, the one that's $7 a month. Again, you can leave it up if you want, but you can also stop the server when you're not using it to control costs. Okay. So there's more to come. I'm going to share with you. I haven't actually fully fleshed out the details here yet. I wanted to go ahead and create the screencast for it on how you're going to report back. Probably what I'll have you do is submit either the IP address, or I don't know, I may have you just submit a screenshot. A lot of what I'm doing for this class is going to be screenshots, just because it's difficult to verify all the work you're doing. But again, you will be doing this LinkedIn lesson on managing virtual machines in Azure. I'll have you take the chapter quiz and submit a screenshot of that. You're also going to be doing this Ubuntu Linux Essential Commands. I think there's 3 weeks of that. The course is only 3 long. So if you want to sit down, the way I'm doing the assignments is I'm having you do 1 section a week of that Ubuntu Essentials course. If you want to sit down and whiz through it all in one sitting, take the quiz, take the quiz at the end of each one and get a screenshot of that. You can do that. So I may modify these details some, but that's generally what it's going to be. And then I'll have some way for you to verify. Again, I haven't fleshed that out yet, but I'll have some way for you to verify that you have created your Azure account, and then that you've also created your server. Okay. That is it for now. If you have questions, just let me know. Thanks.